Good evening and thank you for joining ATC Talk, the best place for all kinds of random aviation chat. In today's episode we go through a series of statements about ATC and decide if they are true or false and why. Let's get started, shall we? To be an air traffic controller, a person must also be a pilot. Well, this is false. You do not need to be a pilot to become an air traffic controller. Sure, some people do both. Maybe they started as a controller and later became a pilot, or the other way around. But one is not a requirement for the other at all. What is true is that pilots and controllers share some common ground. We use the same radio phraseology, we follow the same rules and procedures, and we both need to understand things like altimetry, flight levels, how navigation works, how weather affects flying. So there's definitely some overlap in knowledge. And yes, there's always that classic joke, our controllers just want to be pilots. I'll let you make up your own mind about that one. Let's move on. Number 2, air traffic controllers are dressed in uniforms at work. I know, it might ruin the image for some people, but no, air traffic controllers don't usually wear uniforms. The statement is false. We're not walking around in crisp white shirts with stripes on our shoulders like pilots. The only exception might be at military air bases where controllers are part of the armed forces, so they wear whatever uniform matches their rank or role. But in most civilian ATC units, it's pretty relaxed. Think smart casual, neat, clean, nothing flashy. Basically, as long as you're not showing up in pajamas, you're totally fine. Number 3, you cannot work as an air traffic controller if you are wearing glasses. And this is false. You can work as an air traffic controller even if you are wearing glasses. You do not need a perfect vision, you just need correctable vision. Just like pilots, controllers have regular medical checkups with an aviation doctor just to make sure everything is within the required limits. If you need glasses to meet those limits, it will be noted on your medical certificate. And yeah, you will be probably asked to keep a spare pair at work, just in case you may break the first ones, or the glasses go mysteriously missing thanks to a funny colleague or something like that. Next statement. Air traffic controllers can sleep at work. This is completely true, but okay, not while actually working a position. Let's be clear on that one. You can't be mid-radar and decide it's nap time. That said, yes, air traffic controllers can sleep at work, not just during work. We have scheduled breaks, and in many units there are quiet rooms or even bunk beds where you can grab a power nap. It's actually encouraged, especially during night shifts. Since ATC is 24/7 job, staying sharp at 3 o'clock in the morning isn't easy. We are humans, not owls. So catching some sleep during breaks can make a huge difference. When air traffic controllers decide which aircraft to take off first, the biggest airplane always wins. This could not be more false. It's not like a playground where the biggest kid gets to go first. Deciding who takes off next is way more complicated than just saying, let the big guy go. Controllers consider a whole list of factors, aircraft types, wake turbulence categories, where the planes are turning after takeoff, special flight statuses, slot times, and a bunch of other things. Sometimes, yes, the biggest plane might go first, but other times the tiny Cessna might get priority just to avoid wake turbulence delays or to fit the departure sequence more efficiently. So no, size doesn't always win. It's more like a puzzle we're trying to solve in real time. Next statement. Air traffic controllers need to have good English language skills. I would say true. Yep, controllers need to have a solid English skills. It's actually a requirement. Both pilots and controllers have to take an English language proficiency test, and it's rated from 1 to 6. You need at least level 4 to work internationally. Now, that doesn't mean you need to sound like a native speaker or have a perfect accent. Trust me, you can still hear my Scandinavian accent loud and clear, and that is completely fine. What really matters is being able to communicate clearly, especially in both normal and not so normal situations. You don't need flawless grammar, and you're allowed to say and pause now and then. As long as your message gets across and you understand what is being said to you, you're good to go. Let's move on. Air traffic controllers get free flight tickets. I wish this one was true, but no, it's false. Controllers don't get free flights. It's a common myth, probably because people assume we work for the airlines, but actually we don't. Air traffic controllers work for something called Air Navigation Service Provider, basically a company that provides ATC services to the airlines. So in a way, airlines are our customers, not employers. Now, sometimes there might be small deals or partnerships in place, like a tiny discount on tickets, but let's just say you won't be jet-setting around the world for free unless you're paying it for yourself. Next one. If both pilots of a passenger aircraft passed out or were otherwise unable to fly the plane, an air traffic controller traveling as a passenger on that flight could land the plane. This is false, or let's just say very unlikely. Okay, let's start with the fun part. There was a survey floating around that said nearly half of all men think they could land a passenger plane if both pilots passed out. Well, I would say that that is really ambitious. Flying an airliner isn't like jumping into a car or playing Microsoft Flight Simulator at home. Even with automation helping you out, modern aircraft are full of complex systems, and if you don't know how they work, well, good luck trying to figure out them mid-crisis. And then there's the mental pressure. It's not a game anymore. You're in a real cockpit with real lives depending on what you do. Now, what if there's an air traffic controller on board? That sounds more promising, right? We do know a lot about flying. Radio phraseology, navigation, aircraft instruments. We're used to solving problems under pressure, right? But we're still not trained to actually operate all the systems in a cockpit. We need a lot of guidance, probably from another controller on the ground or a pilot walking us through it step by step. So yeah, unless the controller also happens to be a trained pilot, it's pretty unrealistic to expect them to just jump in and land the plane. But hey, we give our best shot. The next statement is, when controllers communicate with pilots, the radio transmission always begins with the flight call sign. Yep, that is true. The basic radio comms 101. When a controller talks to a pilot, the very first thing they say should always be the aircraft call sign. Why? Because there's usually a bunch of pilots listening on the same frequency, and we don't want anyone getting confused about who a clearance or an instruction is meant for. It's like calling somebody by name in a crowded room. You're making sure the right person is paying attention before you say what you need to say. So yeah, starting with the call sign isn't just good practice, it is essential for keeping things safe and clear. Air traffic controllers must have good memory. This one is actually a bit of both, so let's go with true and false. It is true in the sense that becoming an air traffic controller means memorizing a ton of information. You need to know your airspace inside out, like runway and taxiway layouts, frequencies, entry and exit points, coordination procedures with other units. All that stuff has to be in your head, not in a manual. But here's where it's also false. When we're actually working traffic, we don't rely on memory alone. That would be way too risky. If we tell a pilot climb to 4,000 feet or turn left heading 180, we record it. That might be digitally in the radar system or by writing on the flight progress strip, depending on the setup. Because when you're handling several aircraft at once, trying to remember every instruction you gave without a backup, that is not a good idea. So we use tools that help us keep track so nothing gets lost or mixed up in the heat of the moment. Next statement is air traffic controllers can work remotely from home. This one popped up a lot during the pandemic. Lots of people wondering if controllers could work from home like so many others. But nope, it's false. Air traffic control is way too high stakes for that. You need a whole setup of super reliable certified equipment, radar displays, communication systems, backups if something goes wrong, all designed to work flawlessly 24/7. So just having your internet and a PlayStation at home, not gonna cut it. So no remote ATC shift from couch, unfortunately. Next statement. Controllers are subject to unannounced random drug and alcohol testing. Honestly, this should be a no-brainer. It is true. Safety is everything in aviation, and that means controllers have to be 100% sharp, mentally and physically. So yes, controllers are regularly and randomly tested for drugs and alcohol. It's not just a formality, it's a zero-tolerance deal. No psychoactive substances, no compromises. This isn't just for controllers. Pilots and anyone involved in keeping people safe in the skies have the same rules. Even if there wasn't testing, you'd hope everything would take this seriously because lives depend on it. Air traffic controllers must be good at math. Despite what people think, air traffic controllers do not need to be math wizards solving crazy equations. The math what we do is pretty straightforward, mostly simple stuff with speeds, distances, timing. For example, say two planes are lining up to land. We need to figure out how much faster the second one can go while still keeping a safe distance when the first one touches down. There we have to take into account the speeds of both aircraft, what is the distance between them, and how long it will take for the first one to land with its current speed. But it's all mental math, no calculators or pen and paper allowed, and definitely not asking ChatGPT for help mid-shift. Next statement is, after graduating as an air traffic controller, you can work internationally in ATC in any country. I would say that in most cases this is true. Air traffic controller training follows international standards, so the basics are pretty much the same worldwide. That means if you graduate as a controller, you've got the foundational knowledge to work in different countries. That said, working at a small regional tower with mostly light VFR traffic is a whole different ballgame compared to handling busy international approach control or managing complex upper airspace at an area control center. The key is getting your required ratings and then completing the specific training for the unit you'll be working in. Once you've done that, you're good to go, no matter where you are. Next statement is, controllers need to memorize all airports and aircraft types. This is completely false. Honestly, knowing all airports around the world, that is not really a thing controllers need to memorize. What is important is understanding the flight plan routes that pass through your airspace and sometimes, for example, the requested flight altitudes. Take tower controllers, for example. Their job is to make sure a flight can taxi, line up, and safely take off from the runway. Once that plane is handed off to the next controller, the tower does not care if it's flying for 15 minutes or 15 hours. Now, aircraft types are a different story. There are hundreds, maybe thousands of different planes out there. No one can memorize all of them. But controllers need to know the performance of the type they see every day. Things like approach speeds, climb rates, descent rates, or if an aircraft needs, for example, a long engine run-up before takeoff. Because honestly, you don't want to be the controller telling a tiny Cessna to cruise at 250 knots. That's just embarrassing. That is all for now. I hope you enjoyed the show. Until next time, subscribe to the channel, have a nice flight, and report your altitude passing. Good night.